Hello, everyone. Welcome to another free webinar from Everything MRI. Julian, I hope you're there. I can see you. So just
There you
let's
go.
start
I'm
this.
right here.
Yeah, I missed this, to be honest. It's been a while since we did the last one with, I think it was not Davide, Daniele. Was
Daniele
that?
over there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have so many people from so many different countries, which is amazing to see how MRI is so global and there's the interest from around the globe. So welcome to all of you. Today we're going to talk about synthetic MRI. Julian will do the introduction in a minute, but before we start, I just ask everyone to keep your mics and cameras off. That's important so we can keep the webinar going without interruptions. You have the chat box at the bottom and you can ask all your questions there. Okay, so the idea is you ask as many questions as you want, and then we can ask our guest after the lecture or during the lecture. Apparently there's some possible break in the middle. We can ask your questions. So the idea is that you ask whatever you want so he can answer. So the idea is that we interact with you guys. It's not just a one-way road, is a two-way road. So it's for us to get together as a community and discuss this topic, which I believe is super interesting, super actual, and it's going to be actually some of the future for me. So before I say anything else, I will pass to Julian. Julian will introduce our guest, which is a member of the Fourier crew, and then we go from there. So thank you so much once again for being here with us. We appreciate every single one of you, and let's have some fun.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sam, for passing me the torch as usual. And I want to invite to the stage, virtual stage, Davide, which, as you already said, is part of the Fourier crew, but he is also the vice president of AITeRM, which is a very well-established entity now in Italy, which is bringing like the knowledge of MRI all over the country. And I think has played like a massive role so far with some beautiful events. There'll be one in December now, which will be very, very interesting. So I want to praise Davide for that and for that work, along with Fabio Marconi and all the other members from AITeRM. And at the same time, I want to focus on what we have here today, because I saw like people coming, mentioning in the chat, I come from Algeria, I come from Germany, I come from Romania, Bangladesh, I come from Pakistan. I was like, wow, we got all the possible countries tonight. And that would be awesome, to be honest. And I do understand why there is such an excitement, because the topic today will be very, very interesting. We are talking about synthetic applications in MRI, and I think Davide is the perfect person because, along with being an MRI radiographer, as most of us, he has been spending a lot like research, and I would say also like spending days with new scanners, new technologies, which kind of like fuel his passion about these topics. So I think he's definitely the right person, and I'm looking forward to hear what he has to say to us. So Davide, the stage is completely yours. If you need anything from us, just let us know. We will be here in the background. I just want to leave everything to you.
Okay, so I want at first say, I would like to say thank you to everyone to be here, like Samuel and Julian. Thank to Samuel and Julian to invite me and give me trust to take this topic that is very particular on the stage. I want to say a big thank you to Carlo Vitale and Fabio Marconi that helped me a lot during this presentation. This presentation is a work, and Julian knows that is developed in 1 year. This is the final version, but the time running, so every time I had something new, and I think that right now is the perfect stage for present 1 year of work right now. So if there is nothing to say, I can share my screen and start with the presentation, okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Give me just one feedback.
Yeah.
You see my laptop. Okay, I can start. Perfect. What we see on this presentation. The outline is very simple because, because we start to see the synthetic MRI past application. So what we did in the past, but also what we did right now with synthetic MRI. In the second part of the presentation, we see the AI, the artificial intelligence, and all the family of the generative network on MRI. And in the third part, we see what the most important clinical application that I find on scientific research, PubMed, or other system in which I find the best work that I think are very, 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 very interesting. So we start with a little bit the history outline. Usually, I start the presentation low with the low field because for me it's important to build the basis and then build all the castle because it's important that the bases are clear. So if I tell something during the few slides that you considering very simple, just have a listen and then you see that with the pass of the time, we growing with the concept that became very, very, very complex. For the history outline in 1984, 1985, we can say that Bilk and Bobman are the father of synthetic MRI. They proposed the model of synthetic MRI. They have two articles that you can see below, and you can read as well. But the problem that they have in 1984, 1985 is the hardware, is the memory, is the data, and is the duration of the acquisition that is very, very, very long. So take many problems that all the people that perform MRI, like our community, knows well. We can take the people just for one sequence, 10 or 15 minutes for acquiring, like in this case, a pool of image, because it's not just one single image, but it's a pool of image. But 10 minutes, 15 minutes are too much, because if the patient move, you know that can be artifact, and we take too much risk in the balance of the benefit for the patient. In 1989, we have a significant step with the MRI Image Expert. That is a software that was creating for synthetic image, not just in resonance, but also for educational. And since 1989, as you can see, more than 12,000 licenses of this software have been distributed. In 2004, we have the first rapid acquisition and quantification method for parametric mapping that was introduced on synthetic image. The first to introduce was GE and Philips, and then I find that Siemens in 2017 produced something for synthetic MRI. Here I representing just the intrinsic and the extrinsic parameter. It's clear that the extrinsic parameter, that is the one that we have to manage for having the image, are not so report at all, but for the intrinsic parameter we can also say that we have T1 recovery time, T2 TG time, the proton density, the flow, and the ADC. Now we're going to analyze the different workflow between synthetic MRI and conventional MRI. On synthetic MRI, we put the patient in the scanner, we are acquiring a multi-parametric map of each tissue properties, and then we are going to generate different images with different contrast resolution. On the other side, what we do right now on conventional MRI, we acquire the signal from one single tissue of one intrinsic properties, T1 or T2 weighting or proton density, and then we generating just one single set of image. So you can see that there is a huge difference between these two approaches. But how synthetic MRI works? On synthetic MRI, we are going to generate a quantitative MRI with an intrinsic parameter maps of T1 and T2. By this map, we're generating an R1 map and R2 map. And from these, we can generate 10 different contrast weighting image. That is a combination of TR, TE, and TI. Then we can also generate a proton density map, and another thing that is very, very interesting, that we can evaluate a B1 map that is an homogeneity map. So we can see if in the isocenter of the scanner, in the place in which we scan, there is some inhomogeneity of the B1. Then we can generate several contrast-enhanced images, T1, T2, proton density, T1 or T2 flare, STIR, double inversion recovery, and right now we see the synthetic sequences. The synthetic sequences we can say is multi-dynamic and multi-echo sequences. Is a saturation recovery, two-dimensional fast-spin echo imaging. We have two different time of echo. Usually one is short and one is a little bit higher. We have 5 different saturation recovery times. You can see that going from 150 to 4,000. The number of the image that we can generate is gives to the number of saturation recovery time plus the number of echo time. And a little tips for neural application that with synthetic image, we can also have a brain segmentation, not just only of white and gray matter, but also of cerebral fluid spinal, and also myelin can be done and segmented. Here I reproduce the graphics, the temporal diagram of saturation recovery acquisition, and I want to put the attention on specific here on this kind of application of gradient slice. This application is also called crusher gradients and have 3 different aims. Eliminate the feed that is generated by the refocusing pulse. And we can see how here that we have feed 1 and feed 2 after the first 2 radio frequency pulse. Have an equal amplitude to eliminate the gradient in thus the phasing effect on the spin echo. And is one of the reasons why radiofrequency refocused echo family of sequence are waiting on T2 and not just on T2 star as the gradient recalled echo. For synthetic MRI, we start to see something clinical. We have the first sequence during above 6 or 7 minutes of scan. We can see on the first row the relaxation map, R1, R2, the proton density map, and the B1. From this, we have 2 different arrows. In one, we can see the 10 different images that on this case are acquired on a single healthy volunteer. We have T1, T2, proton density, T1 flare, T2 flare, STIR, PSIR, DIR, white matter, DIR gray matter, or PSIR vessel. On the other side, we can see that the most advanced bundle of the synthetic MRI includes also the automatic segmentation of gray matter, white matter, cerebrospinal fluid, and myelin. On this other case, I show you a prospective multi-reader, multi-case and multi-center clinical trial about, and I report the article below, so you can see about Tenenbaum et al. And Tenenbaum was one of the most important authors that you can see about synthetic MRI. On the left image, we can see that this image are acquiring all on 3 Tesla of a normal brain. In conventional MRI, we have the upper row of conventional MRI and synthetic MRI on the lower row. As we can see at a first view, the quality of the image is absolutely similar. I don't see any difference that let me say, oh no, I prefer to acquire the conventional imaging and not the synthetic one. On the second part, we have the chronic infarction in synthetic and conventional 3 Tesla MRI imaging. We have conventional that is row 1 and row 3, and synthetic acquisition that is row 2 and row 4. The color maps represent the quantitative perfusion map lower right and demonstrate the decreasing of flow and prolonged transit time in the region of chronic infarction. Also in this case, in a pathological case, I don't see particular difference between synthetic and conventional MRI. I have to say that at the beginning of this technique, I start to work not so much, because I remember it's 2010, 2011 when I start to work on 3 Tesla, and there is the synthetic MRI, and I'm not believe that is a good technique. But with experience, I understand that all the techniques that we have on MRI are good and can be resolved one specific case, maybe in one patient in which we can't acquire the conventional imaging for because we don't have time for all the waiting images. So with this kind of study that I have from this year, I think that synthetic MRI can be a good solution, especially for example, on emergency department, can be very interesting for all the people in which we need short time and acquire the most quality of waiting image, and synthetic can be good. Now we have the first question time that I prepare. What do you think about synthetic MRI? I don't know if Samuel would like to share a poll. And okay, and if you ever use it before, maybe in certain case or for specific patient. I answer right now to this question. Maybe I think that in certain case of for specific patients in emergency area especially can be very good, because we acquiring just this this mapping of T1 and T2, and then we can manage TR, TE, TI, the extrinsic parameter that we described at the beginning of this presentation, and then we can play a little bit with the contrast in agreement with the radiologist.
Just to give you literally 30 seconds of break, Davide,
Yeah, for sure.
if you want to drink a glass of water, I just want to comment that
Can you see the poll now? No.
Say it again?
Can you see the poll?
Me?
Yeah.
Just
a moment.
1 second.
Give me a second then, because I created
Okay.
it.
No, not a place.
Yeah.
Not yet. No.
In the meantime, Davide, I just want to ask you. Oh yeah, I can see.
Okay, now I can share I can see the pool.
I want to ask you because there was that beautiful slide saying that just above 6 minutes you had all those. I counted like 10 different contrasts, and I was like, wow! In a modern society, modern healthcare system, where we always looking for speed, especially in most of the context, that could be literally the next big thing. Having like one sequence and like about like 6, let's say even 10 minutes, but then all those type of contrasts makes it quite interesting, to be honest. And I think also from as you said, emergency settings, pediatric settings as well, maybe kids,
yes,
as well.
exactly.
So yeah,
all the exam in which you need the sedation of the patient, so you have to be short and precise. Maybe synthetic MRI can be an option, can be available. You can have an exam of quality. And for this reason, I say before that when these technologies come, maybe I'm younger, so I prefer now the conventional MRI because I'm not so experienced. But when you become a little bit experienced, a little bit skilled on MRI, you understand that in some specific case, you have the technologies for achieve the results. That the results for us is produce imaging of quality. So, pediatric, emergency, patient that can collaborate, so is under sedation. Synthetic for me is the answer on the brain imaging. In agreement with the radiologist, is clear.
I can see there is a 50-50, like people say super interested. Well, I'll say maybe also those that are super interested are also those that never used it, I guess. I'm probably one of those. So yeah, I would say maybe let's find the second part. What do you think, David?
Okay, yes. We can start.
Can you just one question actually? I think Manuel is asking what do you do in case a patient's movements in the sequence that lasts around six minutes? What do you do then?
This can be a problem because you know that movement is always a problem on MRI. But I think that if you apply these technologies for the right thing and not for on child that are awake or on people that are awake, that there is the risk that every movement also on sequence of 30 seconds, of 45 seconds. I said before, synthetic MRI can be good for, especially this is the past application of synthetic MRI, can be good for specific case. So emergency, sedation patient, pediatric, and so on.
Yeah, if I can add to that, which I think your answer is perfect, but maybe in this type of instances as well, if you know that you have a sequence that is going to take 6 minutes, first thing probably you will have time to repeat it, I guess, because your examination is going to probably take more or less that. And second thing is that you will probably focus a little bit more on padding. Let's say there is a brain. In that case, you know, all those extra tools that will make the patient completely, you know, stable, immobilized,
Yes.
that would be critical, you know. If you have a sequence that is going to last 6 minutes and you already know it, then your positioning will be critical.
We have to considering that synthetic MRI is only applied on the past application on the brain.
Yeah.
Not on abdomen, not on prostate, not on other kind of acquisition, maybe musculoskeletal imaging on something like that. So I hope I can go on and I answer Manuel in the correct way.
Perfect.
Thank you. We have just a comment actually about this. The Mojab, sorry if I mispronounced your name, is saying that they use compressed sensing and quick scanners.
Wow.
Yeah, and United Imaging scanners to do that.
Okay, very interesting.
Fantastic.
All right, Davide, I think you can go ahead, continue.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So we can start with the second part of this outline and presentation. We can talk of artificial intelligence and generative network on MRI, and this is one of the most important and interesting topic on the moment and on this presentation. With the claim of artificial intelligence, we have a little bit transformation of the magic triangle from a magic triangle 2.0. Everyone knows that when we work in MRI, we have to pay attention to balance the time, the resolution, spatial or contrast resolution, and the SNR of single acquisition. But right now, we have also to pay attention to the comfort to the patient. We have to pay attention to the cost of the exam. We have to pay attention to the sustainability that is one of the main themes on ACR last year on 2025. And artificial intelligence help us to change our triangle for 1.0 to 2.0 version. On this article of 𝐄𝐲𝐬 et al. That I find very interesting, we have a review and identification of all the deep learning techniques and deep learning architectures. We know that there are several architectures of deep learning, and that the deep learning can reconstruct high quality imaging right now with denoising, with super spatial resolution. We can cut the time of acquisition from undersampling data from key space. Now we see these kind of architectures. In particular, we see two of that, the convolutional neural network, CNN, and the GAN, the generative adversarial network, because are the two most representative on synthetic application right now and for the future. For CNN is one of the useful architecture that we have right now, and is quite similar for the people that produce that build that to the human brain. Is characteristic is being formed from tens, hundreds of hidden layer, and these layers are specific characteristic. The first three layers are the convolution, the rectified linear unit, and the pooling. And this is replacing for all the number of the layer that we have. The convolution is very important because in the inputs that we gave to the architecture, we activate a series of patterns that the CNN have to recognize. In the rectified linear unit is a training facilitator because eliminate the negative values, have a check of the bias if there are bias on the convolution and the recognize of the pattern of the image. Then we pass to the next layer, that is the pooling. Pooling is a simplify of the output and reducing the number of variants and parameters that the network has to learn. Why is very important this one? Because each artificial intelligence that we use have to be trained. We cannot train and use an architecture of deep learning model. We have to train, we need to train for specific application. On CNN, the last two layers is the penultimate layer that is fully connected and generated a vector of dimension k, in which k is a number of the predict class that contain the probability for each class and any classification image. And then in the last layer, we have the classification of the final output. Where are used the CNN? In the medical imaging, because can analyze thousands of histological samples and discriminate if there is good or not. In the audio processing, we use at home or our phone. Hey Siri, Alexa, you can open the light, you can take the radio. This is the AI system that recognize our voice and our feature or commands that we gave and start with the process. The object detection for example, autonomous driving, like for Tesla or like for each car that was developed in the future with autonomous driving, and for synthetic data generation. In association with the GAN can be used for produce new imaging by the use of deep learning application. Another little bit question time. What could be the main issue in training a CNN with not 10, not 100, but thousands of inner layer for further application?
Well,
The answer was, okay, Julian, if you want to...
No. I just wanted to say that I'm very curious to see the answers. And I want to tell you my answers, but at the very end.
Okay, the answer is the data. Why the data? Because the amount of data that we needed to train a CNN is exponentially proportional to the number of the layer. So this presentation, I have a little step back. The first time that I propose is an Italian chapter of his AITeRM that is in Lecco, and I have the possibility to talk with Professor Castellano of the University of Bologna, that is one of the main experts of artificial intelligence and deep learning. And he said to me an interesting consideration in which was born this question time. This consideration is, but in the future, if we have a CNN of thousands of layers, and for thousands of layers, we need millions or more than millions of data. The data that we have to take are enough in internet, or we have to create a new one? This is a very interesting consideration because where is the limit? We need to create and to use generative adversarial network deep learning system for create realistic but not real data for train a CNN, or we have the amount of data that is necessary for a CNN that have thousands of layers? Can
I add just a reflection point on this, Davide? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to forget after And I think it's really important what you mentioned. And I saw someone in the chat already got the point perfectly, because I think it is exactly as you said, the amount of data, but I won't just pinpoint also the quality of the data. If you think about it, let's think about like training like a data set in cardiac MRI. How many pathologies there can be? Imagine like congenital cardiac MRI. How do you get that specific congenital disease? Like how many data sets you need to have from that specific congenital disease? We know sometimes some patients have, you know, the heart at the opposite side, like sometimes left and right, the liver completely opposite. So how many data sets you need to have from those patients? So there will be always those type. The quality of the data, I think, will be very important as well.
Yes,
And we
because
have
it's
to add
clear,
as
no?
well-
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
Davide, I think we have to add as well the fact that we need to avoid biased data, right? So we're talking about gender, we're talking about race, we're talking about all kinds of things. So we also need to avoid the bias of the data that we collect. So because imagine you're doing a cohort of patients in Italy, let's say, and your patients are normally 170 in height and 75 kilograms, and they are white males or whatever, and then your data was tested in Nigeria in females, right? So it doesn't match. So it's also a problem with the data. So I see where you're going with this answer, and I'm looking for it.
Because is also here, like MRI radiographer, no, we always achieve the balance. And also here, I think that the people that right now project the CNN and the architecture for the future, because right now they projected the architecture of artificial intelligence for the future, have to find the perfect balance of how many layers are the right number for B training as well. This is my opinion, but I want to have a spotlight on the problem of the data, because each deep learning architecture have to be trained. It is important that the data which is training are correct, because if you have an histological piece and you have to match if is correct or incorrect, if is positive or negative, and the data that which this architecture is training are not correct, can be a problem. Okay, so I prefer that we remaining in the past. But if they find the correct match of the number of the layer, it's okay. AI can help us in the future.
There's actually a question here, David. I don't know if you want to answer that now. It's
Yes.
from Wafa MD. Again, sorry if I'm butchering your name. Apologize. He's one of the members of our community here today. They're just asking, can we generate new images using synthetic MR and then use this data to feed the scan? So it's kind of redundant.
Yeah, well, you are at the next level already.
No, I like the question. I would.
Yeah, it's a lovely question. It's a
David,
fantastic question.
Yeah. What do you think, David, about this?
Sorry, you can remember, because I want to read the question.
Yeah, I can read it for you if you want.
Yep.
So they just say, can we generate new
Okay, new image using synthetic
Yep.
MRI and use the data. Is the challenge in which right now we talk, no? Is if for you you think that generate new imaging, and with this new imaging that are not real but realistic, we can generate, okay, we can use this data to train a CNN is correct, can be okay, but I think that the people that stay behind of us on this moment and project the layer have to find the correct number of layer of the CNN for on the way that can be trained on the right way. Because if I have a biopsy and my histological piece and tissue undergoing an evaluation of deep learning architecture that is trained with not real data, but realistic one that are generate, okay, with synthetic MRI or synthetic imaging, I don't know if I pretty sure, okay? I'm pretty confident about that. I prefer also always that the data are real and not just realistic. Also if synthetic MRI is an available option.
Yeah, I can see someone in the community is already commenting, which is a very good point from Tiago. They are saying we could still have bias on synthetic data, which is exactly true. We're talking about realistic image, but you know, bias will not suddenly disappear. Anyway, yeah, feel free to continue, David, and thank you so much. It's very, very interesting.
And thank everyone for the questions.
Yes, for sure. Sorry that I reduce here and I restart. Now we pass to the GAN, the generative adversarial network, that are very interesting because are very young. They was introduced by Young Goodfellow in 2014 at the University of Montreal, Canada. We have two different parts. We have a generator and a discriminator. A generator is responsible for creating new data, okay? And as you can see by the figure C, there is also a real-world images that generate real images, and the generator that on the way a real-world images tank generate new data. Then we have a discriminator. The discriminator is like a referee on the football, on the basketball, or in each sport, is a classifier and represent and have to say if the data and have to recognize if the data is real or is fake. During the training is very particular because the two networks compete against each other. And in this way, the generator try to improve the ability to generate data that are always very, very near to the real one. And this discriminator try to improve his ability to distinguish between real and fake data. It's like the Turing test. For this reason, I reported the imitation game, no? Because Alan Turing is one of the father, no? Not just only of the computer, but also he had the idea of the artificial intelligence, okay? The limits of the generative adversarial network, which are that the training have to be simple, because they are very, very, very difficult to train, and you have to be careful because they can produce data that are not always very strict and consistent with the reality. Okay, they can lose the street of the data that they produce. Now we have to analyze on the MRI when the neural network work. We have, and for this reason, I would like to thank, as before, Carlo Vitale. We have the single domain approach in which we have image domain learning, case-based domain learning, and direct mapping. In image domain learning, the neural network works after the undersampling of the key space, the inverse fast Fourier transformation that in algorithm that we know is used to reconstruct the final imaging and translating the K-space from the frequency domain to the MRI scanner to the spatial domain. So we have the reconstruction of the image, then the neural network work, and then we have the final reconstructed of the image. We can say that image domain learning is the way right now MRI work with deep learning system. Then we have the case-based domain learning, in which we have the sampling data from key space, the neural network that work and fill at all the key space. Then we have the application of the inverse fast Fourier transformation, and we have the reconstruction of the final imaging. These two approaches are quite similar in the result one to each other. The third is the direct mapping. In the direct mapping, the AI, the neural network, work directly taking the data in the undersampled way from the key space and reconstruct the magnitude image. Then we have the multi-domain approach. In the multi-domain approach, we have the cross-domain learning, in which the neural network work in two different ways. From the undersampling key-space data to the initial reconstructing key-space data. Then we have the inverse fast Fourier transformation, the reconstruction of the image, the application of the neural network, and the final reconstruction of the image. And then we have the final, that is the more complex, that right now is not used because it's very, very difficult to calculate all this image, and the final reconstruction of the image is typically very, very, very low because need an hardware that is very, very powerful. We have the iterative unrolling learning. Now we pass to the clinical application. I decided to divide the clinical application for my study in 3 different segmentation: the reduce of the contrast agent injection, the synthesize of absent MRI data, and the generative pure research data. That is the part that I prefer more. But start with an example of low dose of MRI contrast. The model that is reproposed here for these 2 articles that I share below is very simple. It's an encoder-decoder system. They're working very similar in the half between a CNN and a GAN. The example that we have here is a patient with a meningioma of that we can see with the standard dose, that is 0.10 millimole per kilo. And what they do, they use the 10% of the dose, so 0.01 millimole per kilo, and then they put this image in the deep learning encoder-decoder system, the 2 different images, and then they have a model that is proposed from the dose 0.01 millimole per kilo that is quite similar to the result to the standard dose. What does it mean? Is very important because if you have patients with multiple sclerosis, if you have patients that are undergoing an MRI every 6 months, every year, and if you don't want to use a massive dose of contrast each time, we can use the deep learning system for reconstruct on synthetic the proposed dose by using just the 10% of the dose that we use on normal. And I think is a great, great result. On the second part, I perform, Julien knows it, always, I can say, because it's in the number between 30 or 40 at week, prostate MRI. And right now, the world of prostate MRI, especially for the evaluation of peripheral and central transition zone, is running in a biparametric way and not just in a multiparametric way, because the contrast for the pirates is the domination sequence just for the recidue. So if the patient undergoing to surgery, we have the elimination of the prostate glands, and if we have to see if there is a recidue in the area of the pelvic, of the male pelvic, the perfusion is the sequence that is the main important that in the pirates. But right now, the worst of evaluation of peripheral and transitional center zone running on biparameter, just T2 and DVY. And here they propose this kind of model. They use a GAN, like the generative adversarial network that we talked before, in which they loaded T1, T2, DVY, ADC, and in this example of a male of 53 years old, we have the acquired image with contrast and the generated one. We can say, yes, of course, you generate the contrast, but as I can see, is an overestimation of the contrast area. But for the pirates, it's important that we have an estimation of the contrast area in the match between acquired and simulated image, or is more important that we acquire on real T2, DVY, ADC, so we have a shorted protocol. So what does it mean? That in 1 day of 6 hours of shift, we can perform not just 8, not just 10, but 15 MRI, and then by deep learning, we can generate the contrast image For me, it's more important that I scan more patient on safety. If there is problem on periphery, central, or transitional zone, I acquire T2, DVI, NDC, and the best of my possibility. And then I loaded this data on my AI, and I generate the data of contrast. On this case, the patient, by the generation of the contrast, as is reported by this colleague from China, passing from PIRATES 3 to PIRATES 4. So it's very, very important for them. Now, the second part of the clinical application is the synthesizing absent MRI data. For example, T1 plus T2 on the spine is equal to STIR. We have the reduction of 3-5 minutes of scan time, fewer motion artifacts, improved sharpness, greater apparent SNR, striking reduction of the motion artifact, and superior overall quality of image. It's clear that maybe the signal of in synthetic can be a little bit artifact, but also for me on specific case, or maybe on country in which there is no diffusion like for us of the MRI, having a site in which you can do the spine with the reduction of 3 minutes of scan time, in which the STIR can be generated by just the acquisition of T1 of T2, that is the normal protocol, for example, of lumbar spine, dorsal spine, or cervical spine, is very, very, very interesting. Also here, if you want to read the article, you have the link below. But right now, this is very, very interesting, because what they do, this group of students, of researchers, by an encoder-decoder system, they loaded image of breast and brain, and from T1, DCA, and DVI, they reconstruct the T2 imaging. And in neuro, with T1 flare and T1 with contrast, they have the T2 image weighting. So also here, which are the considerations? Not that from right now we have to synthesize and generate image and not acquire the T2 on the breast or the T2 on the neuro, but that the artificial intelligence system and architecture gave us the opportunity to generate and synthesize data that are similar to the one that we acquire on conventional MRI. And for me, this is a great challenge for the future, because we can shorten the protocol, we can acquire more patients in one day. If the protocol and the exam during less, we have the possibility that the patient doesn't move. And so other many considerations that for me are very, very, very important. The last one is generative pure research data. And here is very, very interesting. What do this graduate school of frontier bioscience of Osaka? They use a system in an half between GAN and encoder-decoder that is called diffusion lightened model. That is a new way for generate image, but not for generate image, generate data. Because what they think, they put the patient on the MRI, and by a visor, they show them a set of image, 40, 50, 60 image. Then running an fMRI acquisition. Then, by the elaboration of the activation data of the brain, they are able, by the use of artificial intelligence system like encoder-decoder one, to reconstruct, as you can see, the image, or that is quite similar to the one that's shown by the visor to the patient. And this, for me, is pure generative research data, only by the analysis of the activation of the brain. a little consideration about the sustainability and the climate change and radiology. For radiology, that is one of the main theme of the AITeRM of 2025. And we have to know that one MRI scanner uses the energy of 26 hours with 4 people inside. The AI help us to decrease the evaluation, to be more clean, okay, for the world that we have to change and to contribute to the climate change in the right way. Because also at healthcare system have to do something for the climate change. On conclusion, what we have to take home? Synthetic images can be quality similar or superior in some case to conventional one. The intelligent system, the artificial intelligence system are denoising, are super spatial resolution, very fast image. So the quality of the image helping us a lot on our routinary scanner for reducing scanning time and have image of high quality. Intelligence artificial system plus synthetic image improve the patient comfort, reduce the waiting list, and use less amount of contrast. Also here, the association between synthetic images and intelligence artificial still needs right now a huge amount of data to improve the accuracy and for the training of convolutional neural network and GAN deep learning architectures. Then, as I say always at the end of my presentation on intelligence artificial, we don't have to, we have always to think the human remain in the loop, remain centered on this process and is not replaced by the artificial intelligence. Right now, I would like to thank all of you for the attention. I'm remaining here for the question, and I hope the presentation is clear and is quite interesting and have a spotlight for you on generative and synthetic imaging.
Wow. What to say? What to say? It's difficult. It's difficult to say because I think first thing you managed to get the attention of all those people that were there. I mean, we had the same numbers from the beginning to the end, and I have to say, my eyes were literally like this. I felt your passion. I could see this is something you really, really like. So congratulations, Davide. And I think there were lots of interesting point of discussions. And I know we might go ahead until midnight, but maybe then our partners will ask us to sleep in the sofa. So better to keep it quite short. Just like a very tiny little reflection point from my side. And then I just want to leave it to all the amazing people that decided to join us today.
Yeah.
One thing that really I was particularly interested about is when you mentioned about contrast. And because I think there is a brand new attention and interest about, GAD retention in the brain. So the amount of deposit of gadolinium that we might have because of repetitive MRI scans with contrast. So, and those you were discussing about 0.001 or something like that, 10%. This is so important. Especially from the fact that we still don't know what it's going to be in terms of GAD retention. We have an idea.
You remember how much is 3 years ago that
Yeah,
there
exactly.
article? No,
exactly.
The contrast, the gadolinium stay on the molecular basis of the brain. And when I read this article, I say, wow. If you use if I have 80 kilogram and I have to use 8 cc of contrast each time, or 16 cc of contrast each time for 6 months, 1 year, I don't know, maybe nothing happened. But
we don't know.
The way of synthetic imaging help us to reduce the amount of contrast, so have a base of safety for the patient, and produce image of quality, because we have an overlapping in the quality of the image with the full power, the full amount of contrast, and just the reduced one, and the synthetic one. That is very, very important.
Davide, we have a few questions, but before I jump into those, I would like to ask you, I don't know if you have knowledge about this, but what are the ethical considerations of implementing something like this? We're talking about AI, we're talking about convolutional networks and all of these things. What are the ethical conundrums that we have when we implement this kind of technology? Are you aware of any?
Is very, very, very interesting for me, this kind of question, this kind of aspect, because as we talked about before, when I talk about the data, no, that we use to train this architecture of deep learning, is very important that the ethic part is respected by all, because as you say, if I perform cardiac MRI in Europe and I train with system with data that are taking from other part of the world or other gender or other ages, are not quite similar, and the data that we produce are not strictly connected to the expectation that I have for the output, no, for the images. So I don't know, because I am a simple MRI radiographer. So all this research is just taken out from my passion, from MRI, and I want to be every time on the flow, no? I want every time to see if there is something new. I always text to Julian, Julian, you see this article, we sharing, we talking, because it's important that we stay focused, not just on our activities during the day, but also from all these aspects. And I think that I can say that when we talk about data, I'm not so deep knowledge how much the ethic. I'm not the right person to say if the ethic, is.
I can come to your help, Davide, because
Yeah.
actually I found like a couple of weeks ago there is an article saying that now every algorithm, any generative system will need to be designed following 5 ethical principles. And I'm pretty sure there is privacy, no maleficence, and other considerations. There are at least transparency as well. There are at least 5 principles that every algorithm, every manufacturer will need to stick on in order to preserve, in order to meet all that ethical aspects. Then there will be liability, and then we'll open a completely new chapter. But yes, I think what you said is absolutely right.
Should we jump to a few of the questions that we have here? I'll try to get them all. Julian, you also can go ahead, but
Yes.
I'll start with Stephen Mercedes. For those who are using it, are there specific diagnostics that can see significant benefit from using synthetic MRI? For example, possible stroke patient looking for MS lesions. So can we use this for specific pathologies? Are they beneficial for specific pathologies?
I think yes. I think yes, as we say before, with experience, I understand that on MRI we have a various system or menu on the library of sequence. We have several applications now, and I'm not a fan of the protocol that I have to apply each time equal to another. Because for me, for specific pathology, specific condition of the patient, there is one time in a month maybe, or in a week, or in a year, that you have a specific case in which synthetic MRI, or maybe IVIM, or maybe DTI can be used and solve the question for why the people undergoing on MRI. Because we have always to considering that we don't we work on human. So the answer that we gave have to be precise, have to be true, and we have to consider all the time that we have to achieve the balance to take the patient on the MRI, not for 30, not for 40, not for 50 minutes, the less time as we need for obtain the results. That is the image of measured quality as we can. So is yes. For me, is for there is area like emergency, sedation, pediatric under sedation, like we say with Julian, in which synthetic is perfect, but maybe for describe a tumor, you can perform because you have 10 different image of contrast image, and then you can acquiring the Y, then you can acquiring the contrast. So in 15, 20 minutes, you achieve results of image of great quality. It's clear, you acquire just in axial, but in agreement with the radiologist, you can achieve the results.
There's actually a question that was just made now for Al-Mansour. He's asking if synthetic MRI can be used with advanced TWI or such as IVIM and DTI. Is that something used in
Yes, because for this reason, I put in the second slide the intrinsic and extrinsic parameter. Because we have a map of the intrinsic parameter and we use the extrinsic parameter. So there is a change of paradigm with synthetic MRI. We acquire on single voxel the property of the tissue and then plane, like we change the windowing of the image, we plane with TR, TE, TI and generate new image contrast.
Perfect. Julian, do you want to ask one of those questions or I can go?
I think I might have lost the order.
I put it in order with our chat. So the second one, I think it's Raphael.
Yeah, Raphael, got it, found it. So does synthetic image affect SNR because of the changes in TR and TE? Will it affect if it's T1, let's say with STIR, or T2 with PD? So is this like I think Raphael is asking if this kind of like the fact that we are kind of like reconstructing synthetically the image is going to affect the parameter because of these changes in TRT on those extrinsic parameters that you mentioned?
No, I don't know if something of the DIA or C, I can do commercial name or not,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
because I have a presentation of the clinical application specialist when come 10 years ago to our site that present me MAGIC. MAGIC is the sequence that introduced GE at first, that is one of the pioneering of the synthetic MRI. And they share this image in which when they run they change the window of the acquisition, not change the window, but change the extrinsic parameter.
Yeah.
Okay, and change the contrast. So you don't have a single image, maybe you have a slice in which you can have the T2, another one you can see if the signal changes, so you have the T1, maybe you have a lesion if you want to see if blood is hyper intense on T1 or maybe if is hyper intense on T2. So is also the way in which the radiologist approach to synthetic MRI change. And this is, for me, one of the reasons why synthetic MRI in the past was not so used. Because also the radiologists are involved on this process of changing.
It was confusing. I used to have MAGIC on our scanners, and
yeah.
radiologists used to tell us that when they tried to do the window level of what they thought was a T2 scan, it would change the ponderation actually of the scan, and suddenly was a T1, and they were focused on the pathology, but then the pathology is gone, and so it was confusing for them. So I'm glad these things have moved. But we used to do that MAGIC. And actually, do you know the name of the sequences for Siemens? I think Manuel was asking, since we are on the teams.
No, I don't remember. I find some paper just a few minutes that we connecting on Zoom because I see that Siemens arriving a little bit later on synthetic images on 2017 when GE is going out with MAGIC from 10 years. So
yeah.
they move a little bit later on this field. But as you can see, in this travel that we perform together, we start with synthetic image MAGIC application, and we finish with pure generating one. For me, the idea that by the data of the activation of the brain, you can reconstruct some image with the help of the learning system is absolutely crazy. It's
Indeed.
absolutely crazy. We can also reproduce the dream of a people if the people undergoing on MRI.
We'll be
I
there.
think,
We'll
I
be
think
there.
that slide was absolutely, game changing. I don't know where you found that slide, but that slide
Fabio
about that is-
Marconi share with me this.
Yeah,
this
that
article. So I would like
that's
to thank him because
absolutely
he's
incredible.
an
Who came to
absolutely
that
source of
idea?
knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll go to the next question, which was Wafa saying, can we compare between the result images from synthetic MRI, quantitative method,
Yeah.
and AI-based generated images? Which one are more clinically approved?
Also here, Sam, I'm very political on this answer. Is depending because I'm repeating with the experience. I can say right now, no, synthetic is the new era. We have to abandon conventional imaging. Not function like that on MRI, because we have the radiologists, we have the technology, the different development and distribution of the technologies on the territory is very, very, very important. And for me, synthetic can be very used. For example, on the prostate. For me, is great if I don't need the contrast, because the way in which the prostate MRI right now run is to return to be parametric. So if I need, if I have generative image of contrast, I'd be more sure, more confident as radiologist to write an answer.
I think the same goes for breast MR as well. It's kind of the same paradigm.
Yeah.
Also, on breast MRI, no, I don't acquire T2, I
Yeah.
acquire T1, DY, DC that are important, especially
maybe-
DY and DC, and I generate T2.
Maybe I'm just thinking we can answer this question by saying that there are areas where synthetic MRI and deep learning and everything might be more helpful at the moment, where others maybe conventional imaging will still be kind of like more than sufficient.
But maybe either we understand in the next year.
Yeah. It's moving very fast. I agree.
For next week, we never know, right?
For next week
Yeah.
or tomorrow.
We have a few more questions if everyone is happy to go. And when I say everyone, is also Julian and Davide, of course. But we have a few more questions. I don't know if you want to go for the next, Julian.
Yeah, sure. 𝐊𝐶𝐷, I hope I got the name right. My God, I'm terrible at it. Is this possible if we put all clinical details of pediatrics or claustrophobic patient without getting patient to gantry and get synthetic images for initial diagnosis? I'm not sure I've understood completely. Is it like probably he meant like they mean like not the patient to go inside the scanner?
We need always the patient that go inside the scanner is
There was another colleague that was Sarah was trying to explain the question as well. She said, I guess our colleague is asking if we could add to the note of the clinical query the synthetic information that we need to know about patients. About each patient look like if we have to deal with a claustrophobic patient or more collaborative ones. I think that's more or less what they are aiming for, the question.
So they're asking if we know in advance, like the patient is claustrophobic, we get a note, and then perhaps from a workflow perspective. Do you want to answer, David, or do you want me to answer?
I don't think that need answer right now, but
Yeah, I think it might be probably a little bit difficult to answer at this stage. I think it would be very interesting, to be honest, from a workflow perspective, if I understood the question properly, to kind of have like a little bit like a pathway where we know this patient is claustrophobic or this patient, has previous history of abandoning the scanner, and we know, okay, straight into, synthetic MRI, fine. We know protocol.
it's clear, but we need always that the patient stay without any movement because synthetic MRI, also if in association of deep learning, we have a cutting of the time of acquisition and maybe we can achieve the 3 minutes. Okay, so we cutting of the half by the 6 minutes that we say before. 3 minutes are 3 minutes. You have to stay without movement. On other way, I can on this way reconstruct not just one image, 10 image.
Yes.
So it's important that 3 minutes are 3 minutes.
Perfect.
I'll go for the next one. It's from Dylan. He's asking, in your opinion, does generative adversarial network supersede convolutional networks?
No, because convolutional neural network are superior, okay? And in the way, when I talk with Professor Castellano of Bologna, as I said before, that is one of the most expert in Italy of artificial intelligence, he told me, but why you use a GAN network for generate radiological imaging? And if you see all the article that I present here using GAN, because for him, the GAN are the best. Okay, right now they development new artificial intelligence system and architecture that have a performance that is very, very higher and major and have an impact that is so much about GAN and about CNN. Because also CNN, if they don't solve the problem of the data and of the layer, the number of the layer, risk to don't develop as they can on potential. Because if you need to generate data for training the system, we don't follow the right way, on my opinion.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I think that is a very nice answer. We get a next question from Ziad as well, which says, since synthetic MRI provides quantitative T1, T2, and PD maps, how reliable are these values across different scanners and field strengths? So I think she's,
Yeah, I don't know on the specific because each scanner works on different way. I think are quite similar because if you perform an ADC on Siemens, GE, or Philips, just changing how you measure, for example, the ADC, no, maybe it can change the unit in which they have the evaluation, but the value.
I'm just wondering if maybe field inhomogeneities, maybe differences between 1.5 and 3T.
Yeah, for sure, because they change now the intensity of the magnetic field.
Yeah.
So for
One of the
sure.
questions that we have, it's about Dixon and the fat saturation and T1, T2 stir in different.
So what do you think if we take
different fields? Yeah, different fields of view, not fields of view, different magnetic fields like 1.5 and 3 Tesla, if that actually influences the kind of imaging that we acquire as well.
I don't know. I don't think, because if you see all the article where on 3 Tesla, it's clear that on 3 Tesla, when they have to perform the synthetic MRI of the brain, 3 Tesla is the gold standard.
Do you think it's more like for time maybe because it's like faster? Or do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Faster, great quality, stability, and so on. It's clear that right now that I work on 1.5 Tesla, with all the upgrading on 3 Tesla on all generation, we stay here. We don't see so much difference. Maybe we see the difference at the beginning because our eyes are not expect this kind of contrast or this kind of signal. But one time that also radiologists, at the beginning of 3 Tesla, they are all scared. But I hope that I'm expected that the image have a quality that is better because in 1.5 we acquire better abdomen or liver exam. In reality, when our eyes is more
our eyes need to be trained a little bit.
Also our eyes like AI.
Yes,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we have time for a couple more questions. I would say just 2 more. We have Isaac. Has synthetic MRI extended into flow imaging or vascular imaging already?
This is an interesting question. I don't find nothing about that, but flow is an intrinsic parameter of the MRI. So I think that if you use the correct deep learning system, they can implement this kind of image or this kind of application. My opinion is that the flow imaging or reality now is more focused on 4D flow acquisition, for example. And TOF, phase contrast, bidimensional are all sequences that offer a great result in a shortest time. So maybe right now cardiovascular imaging of specific moving on 4D flow acquisition, and to have the best 4D flow acquisition also with system of compressed sensing of artificial intelligence acquisition, and on that way they are not so focused to generate flow imaging by the deep learning system.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Joel, we'll go with the last one and then we
Yeah,
close.
let's go with the last one, and then everyone to bed, I guess.
Yeah, we have one thing to share with everyone at the end. So
Of course,
ask everyone to
before
stay.
going to bed. Yeah, so I think we were just like discussing exactly about that. Does synthetic MRI take long to do it? Like 1.5 Tesla versus 3 Tesla? Yeah, do you want to share it?
Yes, I think like all the sequence, now, if we place the same sequences with the same parameter, now on 3 Tesla on 1.5, we can see that there is a little difference on 3 Tesla by 15%, 20% in the time of acquisition, but this depends also by what parallel imaging you use, what coil you use, how many channels you have.
Who's piloting the plane? Also
Fine,
important.
yes, exactly.
So maybe yes, but we stay here. The multiparametric map of the tissue takes time.
Yeah.
If you
Either
use
you are a 1.5 or either you are a 3 Tesla.
yeah, if you use a system that accelerate the quality of the image, and you have you find the balance, no, for put the correct value of acceleration, and you achieve a good results for minutes, 3 minutes and 50, and you have map of quality, it's okay.
Perfect. Davide, I want to say something to you that everyone is always nervous when they come to do these webinars. You're not the only one. I've been there too, but there's a comment here that completely sums up what the experience was today, and is basically how quickly this ended. I hope we'll get more sessions like this. So that just to show how amazing you were today. So we really thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge with all of us. I think the community embraces this, and I've learned a lot. I don't know much about this. I have basic experience with magic, with the magic sequence, for example, not much. So I've learned a lot today. I'll let Julian do his comments, you do your comments, and right after that, I'm going to share something on the screen for everyone to see, which is something I believe a lot of them have already seen, but if not, I would love them to see it. So thank you so much, David. It was amazing what you've done today.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Julian. And thank you at all that say I see 62, 65 growing during the presentation. Sorry if my English is not too good
it's perfect, man.
as Italian. I hope everyone easily understand. If not, you can find on LinkedIn my profile if you have something to question. Or also question to Samuel and Julian that they contact me on private, and I can answer to all the questions.
I want to spend a word about you because, you know, most of the time, and I speak for myself as well, maybe now I'm kind of like improving, but I was always like thinking, okay, I don't want to do this because my English is terrible, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that you kind of like plug your courage, you say, I'm gonna do it. I just want to share what I know with the others. I don't care about if English is my first language or my second language. That shows your passion and show how good are you, and the fact your generosity that you want to share with the community regarding what are the barriers, because that ultimately the language is just a barrier. But if you want to
as we say, you know, with Geronimo or with the member of Fourier Crew,
we always find a way to communicate. So, and tonight you did it perfectly. So thank you so much, Davide. And Sam, I will just leave this one to you and to the final disclaimer. We call it disclaimer.
Before that, I want to say as well that you're saying, Manuel just said MRI is our language, and that's exactly it. I think MRI is a universal language, and I encourage every single one of you here today to do what Davide is doing today. Put yourself out there, share what you know, because that's the only way we can improve the community in general. That's what we aim to do as Everything MRI is exactly this. Give you a platform to talk, to show what you want to do, to show what you know, so you can share with your colleagues and all of us can learn from each other. So that's the whole point of everything MRI. And I really appreciate that Davide put that effort today. And man, your English was perfect. So you have So I'm going to share something. People were asking as well about free webinars. They want more free webinars. So we have the big next one, which is now on the screen. It's our safety forum. We do this every year. We do it once a year only because it's really special. It's something really special. So it's always in November. This year will be on November 4th. We have more than 1,000 people registered already. We're going to open to 1,500, and that's going to be our limit. So we started with 500, we increased it to 1,000, now we increase it to 1,500. As you can see, we have people like Dr. 𝐸manuel Canal, Tobias Gilby, Faulkner, Vitor Silva, Erica, and Doug Boyd. So we have some of the best in the world in terms of safety. We're going to talk about innovations as well. It's not just not safety. It's free. It's endorsed by CPD now, SOR in UK. We're going to give a certificate to each and every one of you that attends and stays during the event. If you come in and get out, we can see that, and normally we don't issue those because we want people to be there and learn. So the idea is we gather at 7 p.m. GMT time. We're going to watch lectures from each one of these people, these experts in MRI safety. And then we have a round table. So all of them will be there, and you can ask all your questions real time to all of them. So I can see people saying, I saw funny videos of Tobias Gilk. I hope they're all about MRI safety.
I hope so.
And we have early bird already. People, the QR code is not working. They're saying, Jill, do you mind to share just the link, the direct link for the, if you can get it, otherwise
Let me do that.
Yeah, sorry if the QR code is not working. I've done this a while ago, so maybe it expired. I'm sorry. We have so much to do that these tiny things sometimes escape our control. But we're gonna share on the chat the link, or you can just go to our LinkedIn, go to our page, and it should be there because we have this event pretty much everywhere. It's a staple on our calendar. And on top of that, we're going to be doing more webinars. We usually do these kind of webinars in a regular basis, if not every month. Every 2 months, we have something like this. We've done at least 3 of them in the last few months. We are aiming to get more in the near future. Normally is the Fourier Crew, which is a group that Julian founded inside the Everything MRI. With experts from around the world that like to share their knowledge, like Davide did. This one is going to be hosted by me and Julian. And as I said, it's going to be some lectures, around 25-30 minutes lecture per each one of the guests, and then a round table. So if you have any questions about MRI safety or MRI innovations, just go there, drop your questions. We're going to ask every single one of the questions. Normally these events take 3 to 4 hours, so it's a long one. And would love to have every single one of you, as I was saying before. This is how we move forward. This is how we learn together. And that's the whole point of everything me and Julian are doing with this company. So we would love to have you there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll have some.
I just want to answer quickly. I think there was like a fantastic comment say we need a link to get subscribed with you to get more information through email. Well, just to let you know, there is a fantastic newsletter which Sam is writing, and we're trying pretty much all the Fourier Crew contributing like every month. So if you don't want to miss any information about what's happening in the Everything MRI world, just pop to LinkedIn. Can subscribe to that newsletter, and every month we essentially summarize what happened, what we
and what we're going to do.
Yeah, what we're going to do. So yeah, that would be quite a nice link with us if you want to commit and follow us.
Perfect. Guys, once again, thank you so much. Davide, you're a star. Julian, thank you once again for being amazing as always. And guys, we see you around. It's lovely to share these evenings with you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a good night.
Bye.